Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Hayley Mitchell Haugen, and I am the editor of Sheila-Na-Gig Online and the Press Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. Tonight, we are welcoming a number of readers, contributors from our summer 2020 online issue. So welcome, readers, and very excited to have you here tonight. We also have 5 authors of Sheila-Na-Gig Editions who will be reading their works as well. Many of them are also in our summer issue, so it's very exciting to have you all here. I have the reading list, and I'm just going to call your name and when you're up, and we'll go from there. Please just let us know where you're reading from, and go ahead and read us your poems, and tell us a little bit about yourselves and any books that you have out or any projects that you have going. We'd love to hear that. Okay? And I think we are all ready to start. And our first reader tonight is Jennifer Schomburg Kanke. And I've actually lost her on the screen. There you are, Jennifer.
Oh. Hi. Thank you, Hayley, for putting this all together. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm coming to you from Tallahassee, Florida. And one of the projects I have going on right now is that I have a micro chapbook that's out recently from Rinky Dink Press called Fine Considering. And it's about my experiences going through chemotherapy for ovarian cancer. So that's a project that I have going on right now. But my poems have nothing to do with that. So I'll go ahead and jump into my poems. This is The Accordionists of the Tour de France. They are there whether they are shown or not. Drunken, gap-toothed men and rosy-cheeked girls, playing mainly to settle a restless crowd. Our American television can't handle it, like we can't handle the phallic smack talk of the bright street paintings on the route. We see the writers, we see the polka-dotted jersey, marveling at his, always his, skill. How he not only went up, but came back down. And beside him at the end, invisible to us, are the slowly moving bellows of a Fratelli Crocchio pumping away like a god.
Nice.
And I wanted to share one more poem. Because it's summer, and summer down in Florida, and actually spring and fall too. We have so many flowers, and this is a poem about one of my favorite flowers. I really love cosmos, so this is called Summer Sonnet in Orange, and it's to my favorite flower. Although at the beginning it's not going to seem very happy or like it's my favorite flower, but stay with me. Stay with me on it. Let the cosmos die. Let each orange petal turn over in the mower's blade. Every leaf left to blend and dry with the grass clippings. You did not ask them to reseed out here. Didn't till and fertilize this hard ground so they might let their roots find deep waters. They will grow anywhere they land, it's true. Driveway crack or decaying red cypress mulch. No, dig them up gently. Fill yogurt tubs and cleaned out jelly jars with potting soil. Get enough root that every bud blossoms. No leaves left withering and falling in the strong sun. Call all your friends, run shoeless door to door. Enough for all, enough for all, enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's great. I have a big note here, a big sticky note on my computer. It says, introduce Jess, and I still forgot to do it. So I would like to take a second to introduce Jessica Higgins, who is on here, and she is my very diligent associate editor at Sheila-Na-Gig Online, helps me read all of the submissions. And she also runs Sheila-Na-Gig Under 30. She curates the submissions for that. So Jessica, say hi real quick because you're always in the background and don't get enough love. So.
Hi.
There she is.
Thank you, Hayley. You're too kind.
Do you have any announcements on Sheila-Na-Gig Under 30?
Well, it ends on July 1st. That's coming up, so I'm excited to publish the new issue.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jess. Okay.
Nice to see you all.
Our second reader tonight is Elya Braden.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see you. Thank you, Hayley, for putting this together. My big news is that I just had a chapbook come out from Finishing Line Press. It's called Open the Fist, and you can find it under my name, Elya Braden, at Amazon or on Finishing Line Press. And I'm going to read one poem from that, but first I'm going to read something else. One of the poems that was in, or the poem that was in SheilaNaGig is one of my recent COVID poems, and this is my other. You can read the first one online. This one's called Binary Confinement. We are too much with each other and not enough, trapped by fear and edict into these few rooms. Our breakfast waltz around the too small kitchen dance floor flows into the den, our bedroom. Negotiations mount over a detente of timing, my bathroom ablutions with his upstairs desk writing time. Schedules tossed on the same scrap heap as our 2020 New Year's intentions. We orbit each other in tight rings, cold moons in the shadow of a lost sun. Years ago, our therapist recommended we hug each other heart to heart with every departure and return. We made it our rule, as sacred as our nightly dark kiss after the last lamp is extinguished. Noses bumping forehead, cheekbone, eye, lips seeking heat and satisfaction. I'm heading out, he now shouts from the doorway, which I may or may not hear as I'm donning plastic gloves in the upstairs bathroom, trying again to chestnut my grays and pink my toes. So many friends have succumbed to this malaise, wearing baseball caps and sweatpants, shoving bare feet into slippers, naming it shelter-in-place chic. I will not go gently into that good night. Every Zoom call an excuse for a wand of mascara, a flourish of blush. It's my shoes I mourn for. Pick me, they used to call, insisting I build my going out into the world ensembles around them. They've lost their voices now, their tongues stilled, the bounce gone from their step. This is my new secret indulgence. At night, before my husband comes to bed, I choose a lucky pair. Gentle it from its white shelved prison, hold each shoe in the center of my palm, rub its grubby cheeks with Kleenex and a tiny splash of faucet water, since spitting is now taboo, as I once shined my children's smudged faces, then slip, strap, zip, or lace them on my sockless feet, wiggle my freshly polished toesy-woesies inside, and skip around our bedroom, pretending we once again have places to go, people to see. And the second one is from the book, and it's called When Joy Comes. When joy comes, don't raise the curtains, throw a party, invite the neighbors, set off fireworks. No, spit twice with furtive glances left and right. Mutter Kinahora, your Yiddish grandmother's invocation against the evil eye. Your DNA cringes with the genetic imprint of Cossacks setting fire to your Russian ancestors' wedding party, grabbing the virgin bride, yanking her dark rope of hair, twisting her hooked nose. The devil jeers, don't be too happy. The proverbs warn, pride goeth before fall. Your mother's punishment, take away whatever you love most. You hoard your golden apples until they wither in your dark cellar. You drape attentive rags around the fire of your poetry until it suffocates, burns out. You hang your art inside a citadel, raise the drawbridge, fill the moat, and still, friends drift away, jobs end, lovers betray. Risk the ricochet of fate, taunt the gods with your raucous joy. If we are to lose everything in this life, and for sure we will with our last breath, then let us rejoice, blast the trumpets, dance and love. Yes, let's love as if this is all there is, this half-mad falling for and falling into, flying in the face of, oh no you don't, and I told you so. Yes, if we are to lose it all, then let's first make sure we have something, no, everything to lose.
Thank you. With everybody being muted, we can't hear the applause and the ahs and the oohs, but I know they're coming. I want to point out to you again, if you scroll at the bottom of your screen, there is a chat feature if you'd like to chat with one another and let your peers know how you're reacting to their work. And also feel free as writers to post links to your work, and that way everybody will have those links and be able to buy these wonderful collections. So I encourage you to do that. We also have, there's a little smiley face where you can add reactions. You can put a thumbs up or a little clapping in your screen if you want to. You don't have to, but you can. Okay. All right. Thank you, Elya. In the 1990s, when Sheila-Na-Gig was a print publication, and I was maybe all of 23 years old, we used to have these readings every time we published an issue. We would have a reading in Long Beach, in a cafe somewhere, or on the campus at Cal State Long Beach, where I was an undergraduate and then a graduate student. And during one of those meetings, I met Marc Swan. He is our next reader, and it's amazing to me to think, you know, nearly 30 years ago, I met Marc Swan in one of my Sheila-Na-Gig readings, and then he found me again online when I took Sheila-Na-Gig online in 2016. Marc was also generous enough to be my guinea pig for the first Sheila-Na-Gig edition. So he let me have his book, entrusted me with that book, and we got it out there. So I'm very happy and thankful to introduce to you Marc Swan.
What do I need to do?
Just read, you're good.
I can't see me. I can just see you.
That's okay. Do you need to see
Okay,
you?
good. I wasn't 23 when we met, but it was great. And I thank you so much for doing this and for also publishing my collection in 2018. Today Can Take Your Breath Away. Since then, on May of this year, I have a new book out. It's called All It Would Take. And I'm going to read a poem from there. And then I have one other poem I want to read. So this is just out for me. I haven't done one of these before. So I just see you. I don't see myself up there, but the rest of the world does.
Yep, we can see you. We can hear you just fine.
Okay, that's great. First, I'm going to read Tangier with an epigraph. Tangier is one of the few places left in the world where, so long as you don't proceed to robbery, violence, or some form of crude antisocial behavior, you can do exactly what you want. And that's a quote from William S. Burroughs. And I do have a visual William S. Burroughs, in case people don't recognize William. When I say Tangier, a small bell rings. I hear a call to prayer in a language unknown to me. Think of Burroughs, Kerouac, Ginsberg, Corso, Ferlinghetti, peripatetic beats who frequented those dusty streets, narrow alleyways, crowded thoroughfares, slipping into the mix, doing what they wanted to do, no permission asked, no red tape, just getting there was all it would take. And then I'll read one more poem, which was published in Sheila-Na-Gig. End of the season. Leaves have fallen, no snow yet, but predicted later today. Wind picks up as I walk down the rutted road to the bay. In a small dirt lot, a white Volvo station wagon, an older couple wrapped up in conversation. They don't look my way as I pass by. On the rear bumper and window, create the world you want to live in, give peace a chance. Ahead of me, a shell fisherman knee-deep in muck, waders caked with brown ooze, pulling a small water sled with a basket of clams. I remember those days in high rubber boots out of the kayak in Barnstable Harbor, low tide, small islands jutting up, raking through slick humps, go to Little steamers. I start my half-mile trek passing the Volvo. They are quiet now, like the decision has been made. I think of a piece in the Press Herald, a couple up the coast, 75, 77, on their bed, hands held, watching waves ebb and flow, waiting for the bourbon and barbiturates to kick in. Thank you.
Thank you, Marc. It's great to see you. Okay. Our next reader has this wonderful habit of sending me one poem at a time. That would be Alan Walowitz.
Thanks, Hayley, so much. Thanks for having this as well. It's a wonderful opportunity, and it's wonderful not to be so confined as sometimes it feels. Both of the poems I'm going to read have appeared in Sheila-Na-Gig, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm from Great Neck, New York. My books are The Story of the Milkman and Other Poems, Exactly Like Love, and I have a forthcoming chapbook called In the Muddle of the Night. It's co-written with Betsy Mars, who some of you know. We're looking forward to seeing that out sometime during this lifetime. My first poem is called Conspiracy of Silence. The living room, dead middle of the night. Finally tired of pacing, my father settles into the easy chair to consider my own useless rambling. Getting nowhere fast, sonny boy, he says. True, can't sleep. Worried still about him, though he's been gone some 30 years. Maybe he's dropped by to help me sleep, to rub my back when I was little, crying in bed, trying hard not to be heard, and oh, to be heard. Or perhaps he's ready to talk. He's ready to tell what'll get me through what's coming next, what he might have called the dregs. This last part, he couldn't much manage himself. He has nothing to offer. But let me assure you, gentle reader, you have little to fear when you hear a story such as this, filled with apparitions and dulled feelings. What a relief to spend time with the dead, to have the chance to bring them up to date, to let them know what's new. Though they don't say much, you can stay with them at least till dawn, and you're ready to stagger through another day, half dead to who you are, but safe enough knowing, no matter how hard you wish, you're never completely alone in it. And my second poem is a COVID poem, and as I've continued to write these COVID poems, I've found that I think I'm becoming better adjusted. They used to start very angry, and now somehow they're much more accepting. It's called These COVID Days. Wisdom alone and our higher self ought to say, these days are given to us, not quite for free, but almost gifts, and we ought to be unto them like worker bees, charged only with avoiding the mediocrity of substandard honey, underpollinated, and worse. Too much delay in what ought to be its joyful making. What a waste, hours spent thinking. Just another swamp in this, the daily grind, the sameness, the futility, the muck up to our knees. And isn't it time for tea? Or better yet, happy hour? So we might get lost in the empty space of the dusk, or whatever we name the darkness that seems like the plague, bound to swallow us. Thanks.
Thank you, Alan. Our next reader was the winner of the first annual Sheila-Na-Gig full manuscript contest. And since publishing this book for George Franklin, we've become really great friends. And, you know, it's one of the joys of doing this, of, you know, bringing the poetry community together and meeting people and, you know, really getting to know them, which has been wonderful. So George Franklin, take it away.
Oh, thank you, Hayley. Hey, I can't, it's amazing. It really, I could keep thanking Hayley all night and it would not be enough. She is a wonderful, wonderful person and has done amazing things for all of us, but especially me. A couple of announcements. I guess I'm reading from Miami, Florida. So it's already sort of hot and humid down here and yucky, and everybody has COVID. So there we are. But I've got 2 books coming out before too long. One is a chapbook called The Travels of the Angel of Sorrow from Blue Cedar Press. And the other, and this is the big announcement, is going to be a book called Noise of the World from Sheila-Na-Gig. And thank you, Hayley, for taking this sort of enormous effort on also. I'm going to read 2 poems tonight. The first poem is the title poem of the book, Noise of the World. It was in the summer issue of Sheila. In the kitchen, the refrigerator fan spins softly. Even piles of books and papers on the dining room table seem to be resting. This is the definition of solitude. The house that quiet, the dog outside poking his nose into opossum smells, or the pleasure of rotting leaves. In the next room, my son is sleeping late as he likes to do. I was the same way once. Now I can't help waking early. I make myself coffee and eat leftover pita bread with honey. The news is full of shouting, but I'm reading it, not listening or watching reporters with perfect hair try to convey intensity. They're right, of course. The news is as bad as it's ever been. But today, something feels different. Above the back fence, the trees are barely moving. They listen in the way trees listen, to the sap that moves beneath their bark. The November air has spoken to them without words. Their lifespans are long. They don't anticipate illness or someone with a chainsaw cutting them down in pieces. The branches first, then the trunk. Future is a word too large for comprehension. We say he never saw it coming and feel wiser than whoever didn't see. The opossums who live under the tool shed, though, and the quick rats who nest in the palm trees, don't divide their lives that way. Don't sit in the morning thinking about history, news, politics, about how arbitrarily we separate what happened yesterday from the day before, and how the future always ends in chainsaws. But we're not opossums or rats. History is the space we inhabit in the meantime, the sounds of traffic that reach us when the back door is open, stories of people who've run out of choices, who've become part of the news. That cup of coffee and the soft white bread depend on being born here, not there, then, not some other time. The refrigerator's fan grows louder. An airplane passes over the house on its way somewhere west of here. The dog doesn't even look up. The tree limbs don't move either. I want to say that this is what matters, solitude, the silence of trees and opossums, but it's not that easy. The noise of the world is always there, even when it's quiet. And there's a postscript to this poem. When I wrote this last fall, no one was dying in my neighborhood except from clogged arteries or the occasional cancer. A few months later, even the light has changed. Afternoon sun burns through the window, the way kids set ants on fire with a magnifying glass, not quite believing their own power. Today, the streets are quiet everywhere. In New York, they're burying the dead in mass graves, and in Miami, we don't know if we're on the upside or the downside of the curve. Jimena and I wear masks and gloves to go to the supermarket, lose count of how many times a day we've washed our hands. Last night, there was no moon. We went for an illegal walk through a closed city park. Its field vacant except for us and a few stars. We were afraid to sit on the benches and walk quickly. There were no passing cars or planes to break the silence, and we didn't speak. The lights of the empty YMCA seemed possessed of a terrible sadness. The other poem I'm going to read is a sestina, and it's called The Detention Camp at Pisa, 1945. And it's about Ezra Pound's detention after World War II. He had made these totally incomprehensible radio speeches for the Italian fascist government. And afterwards, he was imprisoned for those speeches. The poem has an epigraph. Pull down thy vanity, I say pull down. Ezra Pound, Canto 81. He woke at dawn to bugled notes, voices shouted on tarmac, his blankets chilled with mist, and smells of salt and seaweed, Pisan sun. He dreamed of ships sailing the Ligurian Sea, passages of Vivaldi Olga played. When they'd arrested him, they called him traitor. Of course, he didn't think himself a traitor. His thoughts surrounded by a wall of voices, confirming this was how the game was played. Kung understood. His arrow never missed its distant target. Tradition was a sea filled with gray dolphins leaping beneath the sun. By noon, he could no longer praise the sun. He tried recalling if Kung had mentioned traitors. The Florentine did, Judas, Cassius, Cienferno 34, and hushed voices, Lucifer, three-faced, rising from the mist, and Roosevelt between his teeth. Well played. The doctors weren't too busy. Two played chess in the medical tent. It was the sun, they said, nerves, Aphrodite in a mist retrieving Paris. Did that make him a traitor? Loose canvas flapped in the breeze. The doctor's voices, check. Next, I'll take your queen. Goddess from the sea. His speeches were made on the wrong side of the sea. His speeches had been recorded, would be played at trial. Already he could hear the voices. Il Duce had found the poems diverting. The sun lit up that desk, his outstretched hand. Traitor. He spat at a fly outside his cage and missed. Evening. Shirt soaked with sweat. A rancid mist of food smells, excrement, tide pools by the sea. The war was nonsense. How could he be a traitor? In Washington he could explain. Taps played. Dark now. The moon no substitute for sun. Dorothy, Olga, the wind, so many voices. The traitor's vanity dissipates in mist. At St. Elizabeth's he voiced the rumbling sea and played with squirrels and peanuts in the sun. Thank you.
Thank you, George. This is from someone who said, I haven't written a sestina in 34 years. I guess I'll try one. This is what we get. Our next reader, I have learned so much from her in the last couple months after publishing her collection. She is a marketing genius and just a virtual reading virtuoso, and because of her, I decided, yes, we can do this for Sheila-Na-Gig. So I'm very much indebted to my new mentor, Kari Gunter-Seymour. Unmute yourself.
Yes, they're so funny. The really cool thing is that we're sort of women that have, you and I are women who kind of went out on our own and have been trying to make our way and have found each other. And I think we're stronger together, even though we're very strong women all on our own. So I'm so grateful for that. And Hayley, for all of you already know this because you've had publications through her, but if you decide to do a book, you must at least approach her. She's the most amazing publisher and friend, as we are all coming to find out. My first little collection is a chapbook, and it's called Serving, and it's just been revised, and a couple of additional poems have been added to it, and it's through Crisis Chronicles Press. And after I'm done reading, I'll put that information in the chat box. This is about my experience as a military mother, and my son did 3 tours in the Middle East. It's kind of a painful read, but I also think it's something that people should read. And then the book that Hayley took for me is called A Place So Deep Inside America, It Can't Be Seen. And I'm gonna brag, but in the end, I'll tell you why I'm bragging. I found out on Thursday that this little collection has been chosen as the Ohio Poet of the Year collection. And well, thank you. But the reason I'm so excited to accept it is because it feels to me like finally Appalachian voices are being heard. And so I'm from Southeastern Ohio. I am Appalachian through and through. My people talk like this. And when I read, I talk like this, and you'll hear that in just a minute. But I'm just so thrilled. I feel like that it's a victory for all my people who came before me, those who are going to come in the future, and most especially to all those Appalachian writers and poets and singer-songwriters who influenced and mentored me. So I'm really excited for that reason. So I'm happy to share it with all of you tonight. It's brand new news. So this is the anchor poem from the book. It's called I Come From a Place So Deep Inside America It Can't Be Seen. White oaks thrash. Moonlight drifts the ceiling as if I'm underwater. Propane coils, warms my bones. Gone are the magics and songs. All the things our grandmothers buried. Piles of feathers and angel wings. Inscribed by all who came before. When I was 12, my cousins called me ugly, enough to make it last. Tonight, a celebrity on Oprah imagines a future where features can be removed and replaced on a whim. A moth presses wings thin as paper against my window, more beautiful than I could ever be. Ryegrass raised seedy heads beyond the bull's thistle and preen. Everything alive aches for more. And this is just a fun one. I'm sure you've all heard of Dolly Parton, right? Everybody knows who Dolly is? Okay. So this one's called Perfect Pitch. I rode middle school bound in the back seat of Fannie June's station wagon, listening to her and her sister sing Jolene. Trading verses, harmonizing on the chorus. I'm begging of you, please don't take my man. A few years later, it was 9 to 5. They were fired up, and it was Dolly's doing. This was rural Ohio, the bottom lip of northern Appalachia, right shy of Perry Como country. The women in the family worked the TS trim factory, spitting out Honda car parts, started out on the assembly line, worked their way up to paint, then detailing, then welding. The physical labor made their bodies strong, their future bright, and like Dolly, they weren't taking any shit. They learned early on about strikes and picket lines, how important it was to organize and vote. brave women in the workforce, determined to see their daughters inside college classrooms the hell out of Factory Row. I didn't know then I was under the wing of a feminist, taking back her power. Like Dolly, Fanny June would never use that word, no matter how much she embodied it. She was proud to hang up her welder's helmet end of shift, pick up her paycheck, sing in the front seat of a station wagon with women she loved. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with all of you tonight.
Thank you, Kari. And for those of you who may not know, Kari has also recently been named Poet Laureate of Ohio. So many, many congratulations. So it's your year. That's great. Wonderful. Our next reader, I have also known for going on 30 years, going back to my Long Beach days and the wonderful Pearl magazine. Let me introduce Donna Hilbert.
Well, you caught me crying because of Kari. So I'm going to change what I was going to read. Oh, first I'm going to show you. This is my latest book, Gravity, New and Selected Poems. Yeah, I'm reading from Long Beach, California, where, of course, I know Hayley. And what a joy it is to know Hayley. Well, I was going to read two poems that were in Sheila-Na-Gig, but I'm going to change it up a little bit and read one poem from Sheila-Na-Gig and then read one poem who you may recognize who inspired this poem when I read it. I'm guessing you will. It's called 2020. I sit on the back porch crying into a book about Appalachian women cleaving to each other in life and death. It's hot for May. Still palm trees stir, and in the neighbor's yard, friends play ping pong, passing time in this season of seamless time. Fear sits with me. I give him his due, but don't know how to entertain him. Then, from the deep unknown, my mother warns, don't feed him, Donna June, or he'll never pack up, go home. Kari makes me cry. Okay, here's a poem from Sheila-Na-Gig a couple of issues ago. And actually, when Hayley took this poem, I sat down and cried because it was a poem that means a lot to me. And once Hayley took it, I didn't have to worry about it again. So, many bottoms in the basket of despair. There are many bottoms in the basket of despair, as many as sparrows dropping, no end in sight, from the wide and deep blue air. And who among us even dare to notice what lies sleeping right beneath us in the basket of despair? Remember the old dog, her shedding hair, the endless sweeping day and night, as if cleaning also cleared the air. I've traveled back roads, leading God knows where, without a road map, compass, or a beam of light. There are many blind spots in the carriage of despair. Once on a riverbank, I thought I lost you, aware of what might swipe you from my watchful sight. I feared you swallowed by the wide and deep, blue air. I'm marking time now, trying just to hear nightmare days, trying just to bear nightmare days and sleepless nights, lying with the borders in the casket of despair, uncountable as dust motes in the wide and deep blue air. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
We all need tissues.
I got tissues. Yeah, boy, I need them. It's great to be with all of you.
And isn't that inspiration, inspiring one another when we read each other's collections? You know, isn't that what it's all about? You know,
That's what it's all about for me, let me tell you.
just
When
what-
a book makes me want to write a poem in response to it, well, that makes me happier than anything.
it's great. Thank
Thank
you.
you all for being inspiring. I'm going to mute myself.
Our next reader is a more new, recent friend of Sheila-Na-Gig Editions, and this is Gary Leising.
Hi, thank you, Hayley, for having me here to read with everybody. Thanks for getting my work into Sheila-Na-Gig, and I want to read the two poems, one earlier this year and one in the summer issue. So the first, and I'm reading from Clinton, New York, which is in the center of the state. If you're interested, I have a chapbook, recent chapbook out called The Girl with the Jake Tattoo from Two of Cups Press out of North Carolina. And I have a book, The Alp at the End of My Streets. This you can find on Amazon or through like Bookshop or IndieBound. It's out there. So if you're interested. So the two poems I want to read. The first is called Driving to Work After an Early Spring Snow. A sun spray reflection radiates death off the whiteness of everything. Two neat rows like planted furrows, tire tracks of the person who left my street before me. Early riser, what called you past the farm field crows, culling the dirt for seed or scraps of pale green weed tricked to scrabble through topsoil and die in cold winter's black beak? Why are any of us out here with the daylight saving sun, instead of sheeted still in bed, our vision hidden in shut lids? In houses we might hope to be not alone, but we always are at this hour. How I envy those few deer milling in the shade line of some trees, a stretch where boughs blocked snow, and so they find spring's offerings, first foods to fatten them for fawning. Those trees provide a kindness as great as people should aspire to give each other. And the second one, more recent, in the current issue of Sheila-Na-Gig, this is called Cleaning His Room. It's about something that actually happened, inspired by something that actually happened. My older son was cleaning his room, and among the things he found somewhere were this stash of crayons, but all the same color. They were all this bright yellow color, and he has no idea why he had like 15 of these crayons of one color and no other crayons in his room. So cleaning his room, my child finds a cache of crayons, all yellow, points worn away, useless for precise art. Half the lot snapped in halves, and this committee of finch-colored sticks nests in paper shreds a buttery hue, frays of their sheath wraps, relic shrouds of exhumed saints whose bodies glow, proof of miracle on the way to canonization. Why only yellow, I ask. He shrugs, then clarifies they were really dandelion, showing me the label with Diente de Leon and piecingly translating the shade. This waxy wanderlust, its glue-like tack to your fingers, beams yellower than yellow, more like the testosterone glow of a sports drink, chemical energy packed power pop. Yet the wrappers are dull and tint marked by other colors filling out sold packs. How many sets were bought to get this covey of identicals? He can't remember how this treasury came to be, why he joined these in his drawer. Then he's on to something else. Yet I want to search his room when he's at school, wondering what monochromatic masterwork he's forgotten in a drawer. An elementary school version of Roitko or Malevich's red square in dandelion on printer paper, shoeboxed under the bed. Maybe a series, his dandelion period, or perhaps one artfully arranged word. But what would he choose? Like Robert Indiana's love. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Gary. And don't forget to put the information for your books in the chat for everybody so we can all have that information. Okay, great. Our next reader, I believe, has also appeared in Sheila-Na-Gig at least a couple of times, and this is Carol Sanford. Where'd she go? There you are, Carol. Hold on. You are muted. I'm going to unmute you for you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
There you go. You're good.
I was saying that I'm in Midland, Michigan, the middle part of the Lower Peninsula, 4 miles from the dams that broke that you may have seen about a month ago on the news. I think it hit all the major channels. But I'm water-free. Glad to report it. Thanks, Hayley, for those emails that we exchanged to make things work. I really enjoyed getting to know you just through those. So an interesting thing that I'm doing now, besides putting together a chapbook called Grief and Gratitude about my late husband and our relationship, is I've joined an online Zooming poetry group, a study group we call it, out of Urbana, Illinois, led by John Palin, who was in your previous edition of Sheila-Na-Gig. So I'm going to read 2 poems. And this first one does relate to my late husband. It's called The Beautiful Dark. Thought I heard a pack of coyotes tonight, their domestic little yaps and bloody shrieks. So I went to the window, outside black as a cave of bats. Half a block over, past scattered trees and bushes, people had just stepped out of the American Legion, drunk, horsing around. I traveled straight to our cabin in the woods, where we stood outside on winter nights, admiring Orion's shimmering belt, listening to distant coyotes and the abrupt snorts of deer bedded in pines. I'd go in, happy to huddle by the wood stove, waiting. He'd stay another 15 minutes, a man savoring night. Inside, he'd report an owl's hoot, a meteor's flare, the stage of the moon, and I always had questions. We were great conversationalists. And now, in the silence since his death, I've grown greedy to know even more of him, everything he believed out there in the beautiful dark. And this poem is called Solar Eclipse. Actually, my husband and I were in Idaho in 2017 to view a famous eclipse. Solar eclipse. When the moon began to blacken the sun, cattle in the hayfield where we stood milled about, then formed a line along the fence and followed each other, faces eastward. As the air cooled and eerie twilight descended, they turned west, reformed, and marched. Some bawled when stars appeared. We felt no terror, but grasped why ancient peoples believed the moon swallowed the sun, why Egyptians saw omens presaging the death of kings. 2 mornings later, 17 red-tailed hawks gathered atop a hedgerow of tall poplars. 1 or 2 at a time, they flew in from all directions, weaved on currents in a cloud-free blue sky, no dropping down to hunt. Drawn to the mystery, we tried to explain the scene through any science of behavior we could muster. I wanted to hear a myth of intention, how the hawks convened to decide whether we deserved to be warned. Of what? We didn't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. In 2006, I finished up my PhD at Ohio University in American Literature under the direction of our next reader. And last year, he said, Hayley, I have this collection of prose poems, and I wonder if you might be interested in publishing them. And my first thought was, oh boy, I hope they're good, because how do you say no to your mentor, right? But of course, they are better than good. They're amazing because they are by the amazing Robert DeMott.
Hayley published a book called Up Late Reading Birds of America back in January, for which I'm quite thankful. I appreciate it so much. I'm going to read I'll read the title poem and then one others. These are really not lineated poems. They're prose poems. They look a little bit more like 4 square productions on the page. This is called Up Late Reading Birds of America. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. It starts with a epigram from John James Audubon. Quote, "In my sleep, I continually dreamed of birds," unquote. No need for alarm or clock radio today. At dawn, incessant cawing of crows, savviest birds in Christendom, pulls you up from tidal suck of sleep into aviary of warped flights and body betrayals. In mind's eye, out there, roadside, beneath hoary chinkaping oak, a flattened mammal carcass, coons or possums, you don't know for sure, bully beak probing its brain, luckless upstaring marble eye, a delectable plum or juicy oyster for morning's imperial scavengers, rising breeze now ruffling their gloss black feathers, shimmering like darkened mylar in each turn of wind. The great spine broke book still open on your chest, passion of color held tight in talon grip, scapular shafts arrowing a printed page. Still groggy, see yourself, younger, almost unrecognizable, sleepwalking, if you want to think of it that way, coming toward home again, toward that small, sharp-angled suburban house at Wood's Edge, coming home again through nodding foxtail, head-high grass, plumed cattail stalks, foggy-headed too, like this, having followed all day a commotion of crows until you found them dive-bombing a lone barred owl, the first you had ever seen. Under milky sky, whose pale ambient eye saw all and said nothing, you watched wanderer, hidden in a tangle of crooked sumac and spiked hawthorn bushes, as the lumpen-bodied bird flew, praised by crows, through dappled sunlight, a crook-winged fish in air, its palsied body tricked from dreamland, careening bedazzled from one tree to another, like a drunk stunned to silence when there was too little mercy to go around. What's done is done, though, and even now, in a whisk of breath, molted self slipping in and out of shadows, you belong to no one. You go on reading, turning pages, humbled by each avian spectacle, still starved by the thing shrinking in your heart, the ruinous blank in your eye, the empty what have you, let's say, like birds' riotous language, meant now, you see, only to tease and bedevil, nothing more, nothing less. I'll read one more. This is one called Everything Gets Lost in Translation. It has a little epigram from Rufus Thomas, and it's, quote, "I'll show you how to walk the dog," unquote. I had a dog, a hunting dog, a blue Belton, though that doesn't give her due. And nearly every day through the meat and bones of seasons, I walked with her for hours from the bungalow where someone I loved was dying toward the pond at Ellen's Meadows. We walked in good weather and bad, sun and rain, warmth and cold, dew and dust. It was all the same to her, through thick brambles and open fields, beneath chokecherry stands and sumac swales draped with bittersweet and snow, and out among the last swatches of native blue-stem grasses in that small corner of the world. Dogs come and dogs go, we all know that, even great ones. The ones the dog men call brag dogs, too, as far as that went. She had brilliant conformation, feathered tail like a high-hoisted flag, supple gait and fluid lines, dapple-colored muzzle, and syrupy brown eyes that drew you in whether you wanted to be drawn in or not. At heel, she lazed and lolled and matched me stride for stride, but when I released her with a whistle blast or a hand gesture, she became a burning comet, a hot-shot jet star, what dogmen call a bold runner, capable of breaking hearts the moment she started her cast, sweeping into the wind, every nub and shank of nerve poised, alert, on guard. In a blink, she was out alone in the stratosphere, hunting like God's holy avenger, worrying every filament of airborne scent, sniffing out every wild feathered thing in her path, and not giving a thought to her master. The way of the world, some say. Same old, some say. Deal with it and move on, some say. By now, maybe you have figured out these words are not about a dog and her owner, and maybe never were. They're about how much time is left when days, then nights, line up against us, when everything passes through the eye of the needle, or nothing does. Okay, well, thank you very much. It was great to be part of the Zoom process. I appreciate it. Even though you can't see me, I'm sitting here with no clothes on. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you.
That's censorship at work then. Thanks, Bob. Our next reader, I believe, is fairly new to Sheila-Na-Gig. This is Brian Timmerman.
Hello, Hayley. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
Got 3 quick poems today. No books, no projects, so I'm feeling like an underachiever today, but that's okay. First poem's called An Overnight Nest. An overnight nest appeared like a package above the front porch. I would think it best to avoid the porch light. A backup incubator, I guess, in case of intruder, or flighty mother, or a bald eagle-like talon fight, where they're locked in, spinning, falling to earth. The world at its worst when you're big eyes and a wide open mouth before you can fly. I turned on the porch light to admire the architecture, long, thick understicks for support, breadth, then thinner sticks, a bowl of softer stuff. I'm sure those blue strands were pulled off our carpet. The world at its best when you're sitting soft, squished between brother and sister, singing for mother, who returns with a story, dinner on her breath. Second one is called And How. I have an idea of a 3-legged dog and how he goes about it. Chest falling faster than he'd like, sworn in at gravity, then chest rising past sweet inhalation, a trip to troposphere's top, an upset vanquished. That he coasts on rollers doesn't make it pleasant, but my imagination can't be undone, even if I step heavenly, tread heavy when I run. But there he is, a thing, a being on his way. Black fur makes for fuzzy triangle ears, blurs his lines, yet he moves with a vicious exuberance, an eloquence to be. I find him full in the night. He pauses to look at me, languishing in grace, then he gets back to it, and I have no idea. And the last one is called Baby Zilla, and it's for our precious 1-year-old, which was now 20 years ago, which was kind of scary to think about. So Baby Zilla, our precious 1-year-old. She walks like an old-timer, an old-time movie monster, with awkward, almost seizing legs, feet put down like sledgehammers. All along the breezeway, The potted plants are floored. They shake and beg. She's a stiff, strong-armed creature, the two of us stitched together. She smiles a helpless, know-it-all, two-bottom teeth-only smile while manhandling the Hot Wheels cars. Drool pools on her lower lip, falls while she's stomping all over the little people. We want her to flow, to know her muscles and mine will someday keep time. For now she creeps. We set free mini biplanes, white doves on strings, which she crushes, her hands going ape. If anything, we can offer her protection, anything to keep her occupied, anything that keeps her searching the skies, upright, moving her way in our direction.
Thank you, Brian. Great. Good job.
Thanks.
Our next reader is another friend and supporter of Sheila-Na-Gig from the early days in Long Beach, California. This is Tamara Madison.
Hi. Yeah, you know, I was just thinking, my very first published poem as an adult was in Sheila-Na-Gig. I don't have anything coming out. I'm working on a bunch, big stack, but anyway, I will read two poems that were in recent editions of Sheila-Na-Gig. But first I need to find them. Oops, I thought I had everything all set. There they are. Okay, this first one, I'm from California, as you heard, and here I am sitting outside with my orchid cactus. I'm going to read that poem, Orchid Cactus. I rise to a sky of milky stillness, yet the plants are moving quietly in their roots, in a gentle unfurling of leaf, a lengthening of stem. For everything all around and in us moves this way. Teeth emerge from gums, nails like tiny glaciers crawl across the nail bed, and life pushes us along its moody current toward an endpoint, which is just another new unfurling in a tale of atoms moving within molecules. Observe the squirrel who stands and twitches her tail beneath the arm of the cactus that just now is preparing its wands to open the silken flames of its flowers to the milky white sky. But the flowers are gone now. They're so amazing. I'd like to read this next poem, which is in, I think, the most recent issue. It's called The Great Sea. A Buddhist once said, each life is a river branching off a larger river, and every river flows in its own path to the great sea that is death. I imagine my parents in that sea, his bare arms pulling side stroke, pale legs scissoring the green tide, her in a flowered swim cap doing an Esther Williams churn, one stroke face down, one stroke up. I doubt they've even looked for one another there. Now, each one visits me. Even on this chilly morning, I feel the circles of their separate embraces. Hers close, I can almost feel her spirit breath. His wide as a ring of Saturn. Now they've swum off far into that great sea. May it keep them ever cycling on its currents back to me. Thank you, and thank you so much, Hayley, for doing this and for publishing my poems.
Thank you. Thank you for sending them. That's great. Our next reader is Toti O'Brien, who's also appeared in Sheila-Na-Gig a number of times. I could see you there for a minute, Toti, but now I think we're back to not being able to see you. Let's see. I think we may have lost her for a minute. A number of people have been coming back into the waiting room a few times, so people might be having some internet issues. So I'll give her a chance to rejoin. And also we have another new person for Sheila-Na-Gig, and a local boy who I haven't met personally, but I'm sure I will at some point, and that's Kevin LeMaster. You up there, Kevin?
Yeah, just had to unmute there.
There you are.
I'm Kevin LeMaster. I'm from South Shore, Kentucky, which is right across the river from Portsmouth. Another Appalachian poet. Yay. So I'm going to read two that were accepted for Sheila-Na-Gig for the June 2020 issue. Let's see here. Technology isn't grand. This first one is, I have no new projects like on the event horizon, but I do have a chapbook that I'm working on with my mentor, and it should be ready to start fishing for publishers probably in the next couple of months or 3. This one's called When a Day Dies, and it's kind of a tribute to my mother-in-law who passed away in January. The red mare is down again, probably for good this time, while we remodel what's left of my mother-in-law's final wishes. Circular saws and drills drown out the near miss of gunshot. A yellow backhoe digs a grave today while we make sure the termites don't win their race against the west wall. Another shot rings true across the gray shadowed field as she is folded like a road map into a hole dug deep as tomorrow. When a new day unfolds, we pray nothing has to give its life for sacrifice, and the day can come and go as it pleases. This next one, my wife was diagnosed with cancer back in 2019, and she beat it, so we're very, very thankful for that. But this is called After the Flesh. After you fell, hands braced, head skidding off the freshly exposed masonite chiseled from your dad's bathroom floor, you found a new lump during another self-examination and swore it was malignant. This was the good breast, the one that didn't undergo the surgeon's knife, the limited reconstruction, radiation peeling back layers of skin until all that's left is one's true self. The body cries out and you hold it like someone else's dead child, limp as the flesh is when the perkiness is gone, the plausible deniability. You hold it like a dream you remember and dread the word dissolving in your throat, a language you dare not speak with a mouth full of hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. It's great. Our next 3 readers are Sheila-Na-Gig Editions authors. The first of which is, her book is in the final stages of proofing. We're just waiting for that last proof edition to show us that everything is okay. And unfortunately, with COVID-19, the publishing through Ingram and the shipping, it's taken about 20 days to get a proof of a book. So everything's slowed way down. But I'm very excited for this next collection by Christianson. And I believe Kersten was one of our quarterly poetry contest winners. I think she was my second or third winner of that, and a frequent contributor to Sheila-Na-Gig. And I knew that at some point I would need to publish one of her books. So I'm very happy to do so. Let's welcome Christianson.
Okay, Hayley, thank you for this opportunity to read, and thank everybody for being here. I've been looking forward to this all week, just for connection outside of the house, even though I'm in the house, and this is really fantastic. So my name is Kersten, and I am from Sitka, Alaska. So my internet connection is a little off and on, so we'll see how well this works. But I'm right on the edge of the Pacific Ocean. I've got a view of it from my desk. It's a pretty good place to write. But I do a lot of writing up north as well. I spend a lot of time up in the Yukon. And so I've published a couple of other books. The first full-length collection is called Something Yet to Be Named. and that was through Aldrich Press. And then I published a chapbook, What Caught Raven's Eye, through Petroglyph Press. And my baby is this one, Curating the House of Nostalgia, through Sheila-Na-Gig. And like Hayley was saying, thank you. Like Hayley was saying, it should be out, in July. I'm so excited. So I thought I'll try and read through a couple of them, fairly short. The first one is titled Cassiar, which is a highway that kind of flanks the backside of Southeast Alaska, but on the Canadian side. Cassiar. When driving the Alaska highway, it is reliable advice to don a watch. Tundra, taiga, boreal forest won't carry a Wi-Fi signal. And anyway, your smartphone's battery will wither after 2.5 days of driving wilderness roads. And really, it won't matter. Your eyes now scan for black bears grazing dandelions, she-fox carrying her kit alongside a remote stretch of trenched blacktop, jade in the mountains, in the lakes, named and not. You imagine humdrum internet still 2 days out, scrolling updates at Tim Hortons over a double-double and a box of Timbits. But this won't matter, really. Your mind blown like strips of tire in the shoulder, still hazed by wind and solitude. And then to continue along the coffee motif, men who serve you coffee for Karen, steamy like men who wake before the body gaze of day to capture water before boil, flood the press, clatter around your kitchen, barefooted, beaned. French roast, Yukon chaga, simple Folgers of little matter, but served in bed. Swarthy, like Picea mariana, heady boreal, you walk among the seed and layers of rafters, skiers, smooth talkers, loggers. Coffee, a story, a heart lost to a longshoreman, chance encounters with international politicos who confirm your beauty, offer refugee status, should you one day cross that border between what is and could be. To the plangency of beat-skipping bar tunes, two-stepping wildly with lanky fathers, sons, your own wild spirit cupped in the nest of your palm, wrapping your hands around a hot mug in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. And everybody look out for that book. It's coming. It's great. Our next reader, I did not know her before she went on and won our second annual manuscript contest through Sheila-Na-Gig. And it's been such a joy to have the opportunity to support her collection. So let's welcome Barbara Sable.
Yay, hi everybody. I'm so delighted to be here. And Hayley, I just wish I could reach through the screen and give you a hug because it's been just the best experience. This is my fourth book. And I have to say, between all of us, it's the best editorial experience I've ever had. So thank you so much. The book is Imagine a Town. And it's dedicated to the places that claim us. So it's about hometowns, places we visited, places we've always wanted to go, the places inside of us. And I'm going to read two poems from it. Oh, I'm from Akron, Ohio, by the way. The first is a poem called La Turista, and it's a cento. And I really, we know that we don't write in a vacuum, that everything that we write is influenced by something that we've read and been inspired by. So a cento, I think, is a really wonderful form for honoring our literary aunts and uncles. So this is a poem that's taken from about 12 different other poems. Sometimes I am on a train going to a strange city, and you are outside the window, my beautiful, capable daughter, far from home. You were a turista, It is time for loss to build its tower in the yard where you are merely a spectator now. Think of your life as a bulky present, stairway of shadows and lost dolls, orchids in their hot glass houses, bad luck and the black radish. When the trees incline toward the grass, arching with fullness, it's hard to free your foot from that dreamy earth pool. What a liar, the grave. Not one eyelash stays underground. No one remembers a soft wind off the stones of the dead. Often I am permitted to return to a meadow, consider the radiance, a dream of the grass blowing. The birds are there, eating the rust from their wings. Deep in my body, my green heart turns and thinks of you. Thanks. And the second poem is called Witness. Remember that summer night we drove down to the cornfields of Holmes County? We wanted to witness the fields lit by a tentative mesh of starlight, fireflies blinking above the harvested stalks. We were so young, pulsing with wonder ourselves, never running out of words, enchanted with how our minds synapsed in union. What does it matter if you forgot what you had for lunch today, or those 3 ridiculous words the doctor wanted you to recall? What matters now is that you can picture how the field was aglow with the flashing code of fireflies, a full field of them, signaling back and forth, a warble of light in the rural hum of cows cutting, horses shifting their muscled weight in the dim stalls, the stripped husks dry, shirring in the breeze. And remember how we felt about all that magic as we sat on the bench seat of your green Plymouth, the one with the push-button transmission, our first car. You pulled me into a world radiant with wonder, your arm around me, squeezing my shoulder, a brief kiss, luminous, before the complex web of light vanished into the expanding darkness. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Hayley.
Thank you, Barbara. It's great. Our next reader, after I selected George's work to win our first contest, I felt bad that I didn't have a prize for second place. And I knew I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I did not offer to publish Regina O'Melveny's collection, The Shape of Emptiness. Not to say it was second, but you know, if I had a prize for second, you would have gotten it. So it was a great opportunity to be able to publish that work, and we had a good lunch together when I was in California last time at the Cheesecake Factory. So it's always great to meet you all. If I can come to all of your states, I will. All right, go ahead, Regina.
Thank you so much, Hayley. And I have to sing your praises too, as far as the publication experience with my book. It's been wonderful. She helped me put together this wonderful collection with my artwork and was patient and really tended to the beauty of the book. And I appreciate that so much. Also, I want to thank you for bringing us all together. It's wonderful to hear all these voices. I'm just loving listening to all of you, so thank you for that. As far as, I'm in Rancho Palos Verdes, California, where at my house it's very foggy and the trees are dripping beautifully and I'm loving it, so nice and cool. As far as projects go, I'm working on a novel, and slowly, this year is devoted to that, so it will be called The Sea Cure and take place in the 17th century, similar to my first novel, which was called The Book of Madness and Cures. And that book came out with Little Brown and Company. So I seem to alternate between prose and poetry. So this is a year for prose, but I'm so pleased to be a part of this poetry reading. So I'm going to read, both poems are going to be from this edition, The Shape of Emptiness. The Annals of Wind. Wind that apocalypse's sun, turns desert to cloud, reverses time, empties the ears of desire. Wind that spins the heart in its chambers, drinks the moisture of dreams, desiccates fear, does not stir a hair, provokes the trees against gravity. Wind that combs sadness from elderly scalps, frees prisoners, clamps the door shut, copulates. Wind that hums underwater, drives splinters into memory, remembers your grandmother's kisses. Gets lost in the dark, curses the gods. Wind that sings sighs, concludes the ashes, aches with providence, squawks at toll takers. Wind that speaks through the mouths of dead children, murmurs under your tongue, goes home empty-handed, defeats bullets, dances the skeletons. Wind. And one more. This is called The View from Tockwitz Peak, which is a mountain not too far from Los Angeles, where we've spent a lot of time. The View from Tockwitz Peak. I want my ashes scattered here on this ridge between worlds. My daughter and I walk the familiar South Ridge Trail, peer through cloud break at the end of each switchback. We swing back and forth up the mountain, a mother-daughter pendulum, decide to go further than ever before. No one else on the path this New Year's Day. We ride out the breath of incoming storm, inhale west, cedar, fir, and pine forest lifts and thrashes. Exhale east, high desert troughs blur with sand. We know the way between these two up to icy granite. Then across to the sheltering hollow, my daughter calls a place of small spirits. She is 16 and I'm middle-aged. We don't know the way that now ascends a wild flank before us. This is the kind of grandmother mountain who chips at us as if we were chirped and sharpens us to arrows. My daughter quickens, then waits, but I say, go on without me. I can't keep up. I'm always decades behind. 2 switchbacks and she's gone. People have fallen from this mountain. I plod and stare down at precise gravel, beetles edified by cold, cleat marks of others on the path. A sudden lightness arrives. Twisted limber pine stands firm in its crevice. Old, old tree flings rain on my face. I belong right here, crusted snow underfoot. At last, I see my daughter at the cloud-wrapped summit, cradled among the boulders like a damp seed about to split its husk. I climb up to meet her. Lookout tower behind us, arms around each other. We can't see a thing.
Thank you, Regina.
Thanks.
We have 4 more readers to close up tonight, and possibly Toti if she's made it back on. Thank you for being such a great audience and a great group of readers. Our next reader has contributed a number of times to Sheila-Na-Gig, and I have also seen her online a little bit as we do some local readings. There's been a lot of this virtual stuff going on. It's too bad it took a pandemic to make us think, oh, we need to be online. This is KB Ballantyne.
Hi, it's so exciting to be part of this. I feel like it's an open mic. It's really nice to see all of you guys. Thanks again, Hayley, for arranging this. I know we keep thanking you, but we're also starved for each other's company and the love of language, and what we do is trying to share. So I'm coming to you guys out of Southeast Tennessee, so Appalachian people. This poem is the one that Sheila-Na-Gig published this summer.
I have been an ardent fan of archaeology, and if I had only done better in science, I would have been an archaeologist instead of a teacher. So let your hands remember. Digging in Tully West, Kildare, Ireland. Wind complains, shivers each branch overhanging the site, boxed and numbered, a register of time from stone and peat. Bowls of promise, full of wheat or corn, lavender or wort. Trace the painted wings, glaze cracked, dancing, skirting the lip and belly. Shaved clay flakes, ridges engraved with the potter's prints, voice baked in fire and steam, singing, still singing. Mead moon rising, a chalked horse glints on the hill as honeyed notes of the wren echo in the hedgerow. Life interrupted, caught between then and now, as sunset searches the leaves, the earth, for more. Thank you. My book, The Light Tears Loose, came out last summer. It's my 6th collection, and I'm very excited it came out with Blue Light Press. And for those of you, since I didn't do well in science, it's because I did really well in English. So I'm an English and theater teacher, and I've got a phrase in here from our town. So, storing the dark. A fist of starlight fractures clouds fastened on the horizon, sheets forgotten on the line when I pursued the ambulance from the house. Hydrangeas fuss and whisper, doves grieving in their gloom, crust of moon in a leftover sky. Mom's visit, now a 6-month sojourn, the garden grass, bent and worn, reveals the trail she paces every morning. Gait and gaze wandering, she strokes the chicory, the clematis. Mama, just for a moment, we're happy. Windows still dark, I bundle the clothes, begin to smooth and fold, like her mother used to do in the gray dawn before day shifted into color, into tune. Sprigs of lavender tucked into creases, she bridged time and sorrow with piles traded for stacks small enough to set on a shelf, close the door, and walk away. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next reader is Victoria Melekian.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for this gathering. It's very lovely. We're all locked down and this is my first outing. I am in Carlsbad, California, and usually the weather is always perfect, but it's kind of gloomy. We're actually going to have a weather event. We're going to have rain. I have no books. So my first poem is the one you published. Thank you. It's called Quite Likely a Cerebellar Astrocytoma, the neurosurgeon says, looking at the MRI. And I think of glowing stars and celestial bodies, but this is a 9-syllable tumor embedded in my son's brain. He explains the stages, slow growing and high grade, surgery and possible losses, speech, vision, balance. He calls them deficits, a word that feels like a plastic glove. He gives percentages, 15, 25, 40, numbers floating in the air. I want that moment a week ago, standing in my sunny yellow kitchen, holding the last 2 slices of whole wheat bread, just enough to make a grilled cheese sandwich, half for me, half for my boy. Simple math, I understood. It still makes me cry. He's fine. And the second poem's very short. For my sons, a few facts. 1 minute you're saying no thank you to a second helping of sweet potato pie. A day later, you're a goner. Listen, boys, tomorrow morning you'll think of things you wish you'd said. Go, fix what's broken. Regret is blue and waits in a small room down the hall. Thank you.
Thank you. And was this your first time in Sheila-Na-Gig?
Yes.
I thought it was, so welcome. That's great.
Thank you.
And don't you all love seeing everybody's books behind them? It's just, I love it. It's so exciting. I'm going to see if Toti is online. I know she has a box there, but she had 2 boxes at one point, so I don't think she's there. Oh, Toti, you are there.
Guys, can you hear me?
correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I will just read, that's all. Let me get to my SheilaNaGig page because I want to read the poem that you published in a summer issue, White Magic. I've been breeding rhinoceros in vitro, as you asked. They took time to get ripe, a long frozen winter. When the eggs, purplish translucid globes the size of tennis balls, hatched, I gathered the fetuses on a checkered kerchief. You had said they would be white, pale gray, shade of faded granite. Perhaps later. Now they looked crimson and rust, bloody dumplings of raw throbbing flesh I lifted one by one between trepidant fingers. Most of them came apart, viscera like vermicules squeezed out of frail husks. Hastily, I tried to mend them, an old violin string threading my bone needle, my seams awkward, knots fastening ends like huge prison bolts. As I sewed, I pushed back inside those jutted hearts and livers, embryonic limbs, ears, eyes, horns, as if stuffing poultry for dinner. Then I folded the cloth, tying up its four corners as I whispered the first line of a nursery rhyme. Later, the doctor came, picked inside the bundle, shook my hand. You saved a life, he shouted in capital letters. Whose, I wanted to know, but didn't dare ask him. And the next one I'm gonna read is a narrative poem, a little less real. It's about an opera singer, diva. She botched the entrance twice, the substitute lead, duly paid, quite a pro, superiorly trained, one who could look at a score and scramble it cold. The entrance was abrupt in the second measure. The entrance came as a slap in the face in the second measure, third beat, and she saw it. Open eyes, throat open, heart and lungs wide open. She observed, almost admired it. She embraced it, her whole being prepared to mouth it, gulp it, then spit it out, but she couldn't. She swallowed instead. He turned towards her, the conductor, one she hadn't met before. Instead of going on, he turned and he lifted an eyebrow. A split second. That gaze she'd never forget. Frozen blade, laser sizzling her on the spot. Only 2 bars in, the famous conductor took the liberty of starting over, gave the poor clumsy thing an undeserved second chance. Now she knew where the entrance was. 2 words, third and fourth beat of the second measure, easy to pronounce, a prayer, a chant. What was this piece about? Someone told her, of course, when hours ago she received a call, concert dress always speak a span in the closet. Now she knew where she should sing the soprano sub, like an angel, like crystal rain from above, and she breathed on time, and yet something shocked her, and she missed, as one skids on black ice, as one skips a step and then rolls down a flight of stairs and lands on her back. This time, the conductor went on. She jumped in as in mounting a wild, unsaddled nightmare. She sang through. She bowed at the applause. As she wanders backstage, seeking the green room, the score flickers behind eyelids half closed. The diagram of the second bar lines her corneas still, the words cruelly eluding her tongue where perdona nos. She removes makeup in front of the mirror, thoughts unfocused, brains leaking lassitude. She muses about the two most reflective things she can think of, self-portrait and suicide. Leaning back on her chair, she imagines a stroboscopic lamp, a globe, but concave, or perhaps she's in it. Sphere of faceted shine, sparkling beehive. She can feel the smoothness of glass, its cool, soothing surface, and the little sharpness of shards.
Thank you, Toti. So great to hear you.
Thank you.
Our next reader, we just have two more readers, is another repeat offender for Sheila-Na-Gig, and that is Ken Kraft.
Hi, everybody. And thanks, Hayley and Jess, for putting this together. Beaming in from a cabin in Maine, and this is my first Zoom ever, so I'm on my wife's computer. I guess that explains why my name is Jill, which is on the lower part of the, at least that's what I see. And I have two books that I've, two collections. One is called The Indifferent World, which was inspired by the location I'm at right now. And the second one, Lost Sherpa of Happiness. I just finished a third manuscript of poetry, and 3 chapters into a YA novel. I'm going to read 2 poems that were in Sheila this summer, both of them short. The first one is about how lousy I am at meditating. It's called Meditation Lesson. I can hear peepers in the beaver-flooded wood, the churn of water under a frog's legs, the red fox kit's high-pitched bark, 2 great horned owls hooing conjugal loneliness, 2. The wind lifting boughs of hemlock, ant legs crackling over grass blades, the front doorknob twisting, the wood door cracking thought's weight, pressing monkey branches into its once well-burnished broadside. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. And second one is called Rosa Raises Red Flags. I'm depressed, all right, she admits, always talking like I want to die, but acting like I'm worried about dying. Convinced this fist-sized ache is stage 2 stomach cancer. Sure, my sharp back pains point to an inflamed pancreas. Worried these migraines might be an astrocytoma, digging starry roots into the fertile loam of my brain. With logic like this, in a world as absurd as mine, you'd be depressed too. And when Rosa finally stops to smile, adding, "Isn't life sweet, worshiping the god of irony?" I nod and allow it so, fighting the salt burn of tears, watching her smile die its slow death. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. And finally, I'd like to welcome Tiffany Washington.
Well, thank you for sticking around. I know it's been a long night, and I just got to say that I am honored and incredibly intimidated by the incredible talents of the people in this Zoom. I'm just blown away with everything everybody's been sharing tonight. I apologize in advance if there's fireworks and dogs barking in the background. I am in Hartford, Connecticut, and it is definitely fireworks season in the city. So they go to about 2 o'clock in the morning from everybody's houses. So there's a poem in that at some point, but I haven't written it yet. As far as projects go, my only project at the moment is keeping all 4 of my children from killing each other while we're quarantined at home, which is a pretty difficult task. They're 16, 12, 7, and 6. So it's all hands on deck. So one short poem for tonight. Confession. Last Easter, wedged between my brother, alcoholic, and my mother-in-law, tyrant, my grandmother decided to tell us a story, to seek redemption in the retelling. Denouncing her past claims that ink runs through her veins, writings in the blood, she admits that biology, not English, was her best subject. Until that day, the young farm girl version of my grandmother maternally carried to school a frog, extra credit. I didn't know, she repeated. Finally, my grandfather finished her words, concluding this story between courses of the holiday meal. 60 years later, her mind cemented on that moment, the scalpel and the still beating heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for this inaugural virtual Sheila-Na-Gig reading. I just really appreciate you all being here. Thank you for giving voice to Sheila-Na-Gig and for helping me reach my vision.